Well, welcome everyone to the podcast. And, I go far, I go wide to get the world's best guests, not necessarily the people that are known to everyone, but tell you what, their story of success needs to be told. Yes, today we have Rachel B Foy. She's from a place just outside of Texas, a little small town. Yes, she is a life coach. Yes, she's an entrepreneur. She does some amazing things with young kids. And we're going to talk a little bit about, and this, I know you hear this all the time, people just don't get out of their own way, and that can stop them from being successful. It can stop their business not getting there. And we're going to have a bit of laugh, and we might even find out what her favorite recipe is for cooking at home for her lovely husband and the children. Welcome to the show, Rachel. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Robert. Excited to be here.
That's good. So just for our international listeners, where are you?
I am in a small rural town called Shiro. So it's a suburb of Houston, Texas, but it's called Shiro, Texas.
And did you always live there, or did you move there with the family?
I moved here with the family. I am from an area called East Texas that's
Mhm.
closer to the Dallas area. I met my husband in college, and as it goes, he whisked me away and brought me to this small rural town that I absolutely love. But no, wasn't born here, but brought here.
I normally ask a lot of my guests that what was more important in college, was it the social life or the studying? So it sounds pretty much it was the social life for you.
It was totally the social life. I'm grateful to have the degree, but the social life was absolutely amazing. Yes.
I mean, you studied pretty hard, and when I was reading about you, what you've used and what you studied that you now use today, did you learn more from the
Mhm.
social life and how they interacted with people than it did from the actual books?
I'll be very honest. I really did. It was from the interactions and human behavior. I'm currently back in school obtaining my PhD in psychology, and
Mm.
it's exactly that. It's the life experiences in those interactions that it isn't just theory, it's the practical application of walking through this life and having those skills, having the skills to do that. But definitely learned more with the human interaction opposed to theory in the books.
So there must have been something special when you met your husband that you backed yourself and went, I'm going to go and live in a small town.
Yes. I can say you'll hear people often talk about they have like a type, a certain type that they
Mm.
date. And you have these moments in life where you want something completely opposite of what you have typically dated. And so my husband, in a lot of ways, was polar opposite of what I had ever dated. However, he felt very familiar, if that makes
Mm.
sense. He had been brought up similar to the way I had. He grew up in a small town. So we had a lot of core values that were the same. And so, along with that, as well as his good looks and his smile,
Oh,
he
is he
got my
listening? Is
heart.
he?
He, he's not, but I'm going to tell him to listen.
Oh, dear. So,
So, yeah, he got me. He got me that way. He was very different. So I decided to say yes, and I followed him, and we've been on this journey of life together for 19 years. We've been together 19 years and
congratulations.
married 16 years. Thank
Well
you.
done. Well done. Uh, they say a lot of people, especially in business, like familiar. They like going where they feel warm, where they feel welcome. And you were just talking about a lot of
Mhm.
people, you wouldn't have gone with your husband if you didn't feel relaxed, if you didn't feel. Do you
Mhm.
think in business these days, and a lot of companies don't embrace of making their prospective customers or their customers make them feel familiar, make them feel relaxed, make them feel, well, you are part of
Mhm.
our culture.
Mhm. Absolutely. When I work with organizations, that's one of the things that we have to focus on is
Mm.
exactly finding out from them, not just what is your ideal client, but what sort of experience do you want them to have? As we, for lack of a better word, you have so many people who are craving more realness, something
Yes.
that's relatable, something that makes them at times feel nostalgic. It brings back those good, comforting memories. So
Mm.
within your business, we have to be able to work with people like within your business. What is your message? There's a place for cutting edge and staying ahead of the curve, absolutely, but how do we not lose our audience and that core group with the newness? We still have to be able to be relatable, to be able to bring those people in. So it's a delicate balance of doing those, but really shifting the mindset often, of the businesses and the consultants and those that are making the decisions, really being able to shift their mindset to see the value, the true value in that.
You talked about something interesting there. You talked about mindset. I was said to me once by a very senior executive in Australia, very successful, and he was talking about his own shortcomings.
Mhm,
And he said, when I was a young executive and
mhm,
when I was just starting, he said, I had to get out of my own way. He said, I had
mhm,
beliefs, I had habits, I had things that I
mhm,
didn't realize at the time. I was making my decisions for the business I was in based on all of that.
mhm,
How do you get people to quit the stuff that's holding them back? How do you get people to realize that isn't good? I'm hurting my business, I'm hurting my family, I'm hurting everyone around
mhm.
me, but they can't see, as we say, the forest for the trees.
Absolutely. And one of the things I love what he said, which is the first step, is identifying that you have this issue, identifying that
Hmm.
there is something holding you back. And typically, the way we're able to identify that is to begin to, whether it's goals or scaffold exactly what direction you want to go in. Why have we not gotten there? And so I sometimes work with the mid-level and we talk about procrastination. And
Hmm.
so we have some that are under the mindset, I work my best under pressure. I produce the best work, the best ideas under pressure. And so when we really go back and we look, it's like, but was that actually your best? Because you were stressed the entire time, which is not good for your body. Your
No.
family and the people around you suffered in a negative way because you were under stress, because you procrastinated, and you had the thoughts and the ideas. So we have to scaffold and find out, you're believing that it's procrastination, but actually, what is it? Because there's a reason that you're procrastinating. And so we go
Hmm.
deeper to be able to peel back those layers. Sometimes it's, I say, as simple as negative self talk, that everyone around you believes that you're capable of it. But in your head, you keep telling yourself, I'm not sure if I can do this. I'm not sure if I cut out for this. What if I mess up? So you're making all the actions, but because of the internal conversation that you're having with yourself, it's affecting what you're producing. And so, again, to be able to identify that, that's the most challenging part, is to be able to identify. And often the way we curve around that is to say, where exactly are you desiring to go and why have we not gotten there? And so we'll start with that end in mind and then work backwards to be able to identify, why have we not gotten there?
If you're a business owner and you can see one of your employees is having this journey, you've been on the journey. How does a business owner, a
Mhm.
manager, get that out of someone who's below them on the chain? What can they say or do to this person? Say, man, you need to get out of it. You can't just turn around and say, you need to get out of your own way, get over your stuff, push that
Mhm.
aside, because they'll just rebel these days, because especially the younger generation don't like being told even what time of the day it
Yes.
is. So how do we turn that? How
Right.
do we, well, I see you're laughing, but it is the truth. Uh, how do we flip that?
It is the truth.
How do we get the younger generation to
We
understand that they're getting in their own way?
Mhm. Well, I think one thing to recognize about the younger generation that I had to acknowledge
Mm,
myself is that we all have portions that we can take from one another that are beneficial.
yeah.
So their adamant of work-life balance, I absolutely admire. I believe in my age, I came on the cusp of that. So there is some autonomy now where I can say
Mm,
work life balance, that's important. So the first thing I would say to management of those is understanding like who they are, where you just said they don't like to be told what time of day is it. And that's
mm,
very funny, but it's so very true. So how do we approach that? The first thing I do is I approach by, of course, building that relationship, but then also affirming the things that have been done well. Like these are the things that have been done well, highlighting what their skills and their expertise are and what they bring to the team. And then framing it in a way of this is what I believe you could do even better, how you could really move to the next level, how this could really have an impact on this project or in this position if we look at these three things. And of those three things, I have allowed them to say, which of those three things will you commit to right now? And so it's giving them options. Um, they're very big, and even on the research I've done, very
yeah.
big on choice. And so giving them choice, like if I, as a manager, I've identified these are the three critical areas that I need them to work on. And then I give them the choice because for me, it doesn't matter which of these three you do. If you just do one, we can have more production, we
Yeah.
can be more efficient. So allow them choice.
We always say in sales, we like to get people to make the decision we want them to make.
Yes, guide them. Mhm.
We guide them, we
Yeah.
guide them, which is the truth. Yeah, that's so. Looking at
Mhm.
that, how important is it, especially today, is it to have a positive attitude in business? It doesn't matter where you are in the business. Is it as
Mhm.
vital as it was, say, 10 years ago?
I believe it's more vital. It's
Mm,
more vital because the state of the world that we live in, there are so many reasons that are presented to you to be negative, to be
mm,
pessimistic, to believe this won't work. So, from my perspective and even my experience, being positive is more just as important, if not more important now than it was 10 years ago. Um, and also really giving the younger generation the tools of how to find the silver lining, of how to see things that are positive. They, again, that same generation, they're very used to having a return quickly, seeing
mm.
results fast. And so here, sometimes it's going to take consistency. It's going to take a process, and we're looking at longevity. And so throughout that process, absolutely, positivity is important. And some people have to be taught how to find the positive.
Yeah, you see it too much these days where it's so easy. And I blame the press because they love the negative because they think that's what people want.
Mhm,
And it's not
mhm,
true. It's not true. You were talking, you actually, I was reading a lot actually about you, and you do a lot of work with youth and a lot of work with young and empowering them.
mhm,
First thing, I look at
mhm,
social media and you go across TikTok and you go across Instagram and you see the image that's put
mhm,
out by so-called influencers,
mhm,
or you see the image that's put out
mhm,
by very good-looking men and women, or young men and women, and you see then
mhm,
the other kids go, well, I can never look like that, or why can't I be like that? Do I have to look like that or speak like that to be successful? How do you tackle that? Because they seem to me to have a very low self-esteem, irrespective of what they put out there in
mhm,
public.
mhm. I can tell you that part of why I moved our program into the school district is for this very reason. I have two young daughters myself, and what they are faced with social media is unparalleled and not even comparable. I didn't have anything like that to face.
No,
Like our biggest social media was if someone wrote a note about you and someone kept the note and passed the note around. There's
true.
no pictures and what have you. And so the greatest thing we have had to do is first, I call it we expose the lie and replace it with the truth. And so helping the kids understand that social media is a place where people can live and be and do whatever they want to do that is completely opposite, oftentimes, than their reality. And so I give them an example of a very famous singer, dancer that they all know. And she did an interview saying that when you see her on stage, the reason her body looks so firm is she's wearing 4 pair of stockings. That's what keeps her legs so tight. So you're thinking she has these tight abs and these amazing legs, and it never shakes when she moves. And she's saying, no, I actually have garments on that keep my body together. And so we have to be able first to dispel the lies that the kids are seeing and then replace it with the truth of them finding out for themselves, who are they? Acknowledging and loving who they are, identifying what their unique talents are. And maybe their talent doesn't fit in a box of sports or in a box of singing or acting, but they're very creative. They're good with numbers. They're nurturing and they're kind to people. So, or they speak well, so they can be a debater or what have you. So we make sure to identify for them what is this natural talent, gift, and ability that you have, and really begin to build up themselves internally before they start looking externally at the social media.
Do you think, why is it then our generation was pretty black and white? And they would just turn around and say,
Mhm.
why don't you just turn Twitter off? Or why don't you just turn TikTok off? Now, that comes from not
Mhm.
ignorance. It does come from not understanding, because that's how they communicate these days. But
Right.
in our world, it's say, well, if you don't like what's being on there, turn the platform off.
Yes,
Is it,
absolutely.
do you think they spend, like I just came back, my wife and I just came back from Singapore and Thailand. We
Mhm.
travel quite a bit overseas, and we noticed, especially
Mhm.
in the Asian countries, it is all about image. It is all about
Mhm.
how they look. And they're standing there taking selfies and videos at breakfast. And they're on their phone at
Mhm.
breakfast and not communicating, sitting there with their head down.
Mhm.
I'm sitting there going, guys, you're in
Mhm.
one of the most beautiful. We were at a place called Kartanoi, which is down on the south of Thailand. It's voted
Mhm.
one of the top 10 beaches in the world. And they're on their bloody
Wow.
phones.
Mhm.
And as we
Mhm.
say,
Yeah.
why don't you just stop and actually take in the beauty that's around you? They miss life.
Right. Mhm.
How do we get them to get that balance? How do we get, and we're talking young people in business, young people at work, we're
Right.
talking at school. How do we get them to get, you talk about life balance, and so do they. We don't need to work, work, work.
Mhm.
We need to think, which is fantastic. But they don't do the
Right.
same.
Right.
What do we do?
So one thing that I completely resonate with that within my own life and within my
Mm,
own family. And so someone has to be willing to take the stand. And in our family, it's the parents. So as a parent, it's difficult to discuss or to tell my child to get off their device when I'm scrolling on mine.
true.
It's very difficult for me to tell them the value of what we have if I'm constantly concerned with the selfies I'm taking and making sure that I'm getting things posted. So, what we've done within our families ourselves is we talk about being in the moment, that there are some moments and there are some times in life
Mm,
where it's just for us, that I don't have to share it with the world, that it really is just for us. And when we get back, you can do a live on it, you can talk about it, you can do whatever you want. But in this moment, this is time that's just for us. So for me, it's been a balance of acknowledging that this is a way that they communicate. Even for us, let's be honest, as small business owners, that's a great way to advertise and for people to get to know who you are, to like, know, and trust
Hmm.
you. But at the same time, if we're talking about a real journey and true success, having all of that money and no memories of experiencing times with my family is not a success for me. Um, Having all of the things that I may desire, and even if I'm taking trips, but I can't, as you said, enjoy where I am because I'm concerned about posting for the whole
Hmm.
world to see. We have to focus on this moment that's been given to me. And then I typically pair that with you will have an opportunity to share, just not right now, just not in this moment. So I believe first, someone has to stand up and say that. And two, set clear boundaries and parameters. And then again, give that choice to know that you can get back on your Titter and I said Titter, Twitter and TikTok, and all those other platforms. I
And
made a
just
new
just
one.
and you made a new one, and just for everyone, I am not editing that out. Well done. I better ring Elon Musk
Oh
and say
wow.
we now have a competitor for Twitter. It's called Titter.
Yeah. You heard it here. You heard it here.
Oh dear.
Wow.
That's the
Yeah.
beauty of live recording. It really is.
Yes,
I also
it is.
saw, and I won't name the country, but we're in the capital, and it's a fairly
Mhm.
wealthy Asian country. And the
Mhm.
young girls, you see them working at night. You see them, like, the place doesn't get started till about 10, 11 in the morning, and then they work late and then they go out. And they were all about what they were wearing everywhere.
Mhm.
And they would pass the mirror in the shop and stop and look at themselves.
Mhm.
And I thought we'd moved on from that. I mean, the same thing that a lot of women rightfully complained about, a lot of women
Mhm.
do even more now. And I mean, look,
Mhm.
I'm a male. There is nothing better than looking at a lovely woman dressed well who takes care of
Mhm.
herself. And that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have to be stick thin. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are. You can
Correct.
be very good looking, a male or female, if you look after yourself. But they
Mhm.
seem to be obsessed.
Mhm.
You talk about people quitting things that get in their own way. Is that one thing young professionals need to
Mhm.
really have a look at?
Absolutely. With and the distinction of understanding, as you stated, what is taking good care of yourself, maintenance, and then what moves to an obsession.
Hmm.
And of course, in with my background, I want to dig deeper and find
Hmm.
out, but why did that become an obsession? Because it wasn't always there.
No.
So why did it become? So it's like, do you feel like this is something that you have to put out again for social media? Are you finding some sort of validation and value in the responses that you receive? Typically, oftentimes, it's so much deeper than just having to put yourself together. When it moves over to becoming an obsession, there's a reason why. And so when I look at our culture as a whole, it's not just in one part of the world. It is global.
It is. It is. It
It
is.
is
Yeah.
global. It really is. And so if we all can take the time, and I say the time because it's worth it to truly, we're not talking about trying to do a big group of people, but just your sphere of influence. And that's what I do with my daughters, with my
Yep.
nieces, even with women that I interact with, and with the young girls at school, is really affirming who they are and what beauty really is, and making sure that they have the tools, I say, to check yourself. Like if you're not going out somewhere because you don't have the right thing to wear or you don't feel like you're put together,
No,
that's a problem.
that is
That's
a
an
problem.
issue. That's a
That is an
problem.
issue. I mean, they should actually take it, look at the shots that don't make the magazines that of all the celebs that come to
Yes.
Australia and just be themselves, because Australians don't go near them. They don't annoy them,
Mhm,
and they love it.
mhm,
They there's one town in Australia that a lot of celebs go to, where they've got big
mhm,
properties, but not like LA type big properties. But you can
mhm,
see a Hemsworth, you can see and all these
mhm.
megastars walking down the road getting fish and chips in what you guys call flip flops, shorts, and a t-shirt,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
love it because no one goes near them, and they don't have to be false; they just
Mhm,
be themselves. What
yeah.
inspired you to write your book?
Mhm. I Some of what we talked about was the
Yeah,
catalyst of writing
yeah,
the book, is understanding that people had a specific perception of me, and I
mm,
wanted to make sure people understood that it was an entire journey and a process to get to where I was in life, that it didn't just happen overnight, it wasn't by accident, but that people could really choose. And so I share in the book, my husband and I, when we first got married, we had a son, and my son passed. He died at 3 months.
mm,
And so having that sort of significant traumatic experience so young in life, so young in a
mm,
marriage, um, it really shifted everything I believed, and it began to shift how I lived. Meaning, I actually had to choose if I wanted to wake up in the morning. I had to choose to have a positive outlook. I had to choose if I wanted to live, if I wanted to be positive. And so the book is all about my journey of the things that I had to quit that were
mm,
literally holding me back in life. And there's a section of other people around the world who share their I quit journeys as well, and
yeah,
how quitting in life really can help you win. Like, we've heard the adage, quitters never win and winners never quit. But truly
yes.
in my life, I didn't begin to win until I quit. And so it's all about choice. So that was a culmination of the things that were truly the catalyst behind writing the book.
Look, it's so true. I mean, we have a pretty tough saying in Australia. We just say, "Get over it." Now, that
Sounds like my dad.
it's true. It's old school, but a lot of the times it came from a
Mhm,
place of love. We just probably delivered the message
mhm.
a little bit wrong.
Yeah.
And I said to someone the other day, we've all had people wrong us in life, and
Mhm,
we can
mhm,
walk around and we can say, I'm not going to do that because this person did this to me, and use it as an excuse. I call it an anchor, not to move forward. And I turned around and
mhm,
this person said to me, "You've moved on from what happened to you." I went, "Yeah." I said, "But moving on isn't forgiving. You don't agree with what they
mhm,
did, but why should I let
mhm.
their bad choice hold me back?"
Yes.
And they went,
Yes.
"Oh." I said, "Just because you
Mhm,
move on and you might say still talk to that person when you see them down the road, doesn't mean you forgave. You're forgiving yourself."
mhm, mhm. Yeah,
And you see
forgiveness is
that.
for you.
Yeah. And you see that.
Mhm,
You would see it so many times where, especially in a lot of young people and people starting out at work, when they do make a stuff up, we all stuffed up when we started. And so they've got the
mhm.
choice. Do I let that define me
Yes.
and never be any good and never improve myself? Or do I
Mhm.
do the opposite and use it as fuel to say, you know what, I'm going to make
Yeah.
sure that never happens again?
Mhm. That's right. All about that mindset, the mindset and the choice. And when you look at successful people, oftentimes they're successful because of what they have learned from their failures. And I only look at it as a loss or a failure if I didn't learn something from it. Because if I'm able to learn from it and to create a better product or see a better outcome or live a better life, then that's a victory. So the only way for me, in my perspective, that it's truly a complete failure and a complete loss, if it was not only was it not successful, but then I didn't learn from it. I don't know
Mm.
what to do to make it better next time. Then yeah, that's a complete loss. But it's so much of that mindset and being able to help people see that failure is inevitable. We are not going to get it all right in any
No.
aspect of life. But how
I,
will you get up, learn from that lesson, and move forward? How will you do that? So,
I've always said
yeah,
to people, if you're going to stuff up, make it spectacular. Don't make it small.
that's right. Make it spectacular. Yes, yes,
Make the news, make the nightly news or something. Do it really well.
absolutely.
If you were going to go down to your school, to the school leavers who were just about to either go to college or go and get a trade, and they're young girls, and these days, which I absolutely love, is there's no barriers anymore. A girl or a guy can go and do any trade or job they want, where before they're all pigeonholed. Uh,
Hmm.
what would you say to them if you're looking at a young girl just finishing school, doesn't know if she's going to go to college, doesn't know if she's just going to go and work locally, and she just looks at you and says, Rachel, what's the best advice you'd give me? What would you say to her?
The best advice I would give is what they call a gap year.
Yes.
Is to take your time, and
Yeah.
I like for there still to be some definition of time. Like, now,
Yeah.
don't take 5 to 10 years, but I'm saying take some, you know, but take some time, and a lot of times a year is a great amount of time.
Mm,
And I don't necessarily believe you should start school if you're not sure, because
mm,
that can be debt, that can be burnout. So take a year, take some time to really discover, who are you? What do you desire? What things do you like? What could you see yourself doing every day in life?
mm.
What really lights your fire? What doesn't light your fire? There may be things that you thought you really liked, but you didn't. So give yourself a year. I love the thought of gap year, but give yourself a year to really discover, to explore, to find out. And then after that year, start making some plans, or during the end of that year, start making some plans in the direction that you want to move to. But I would tell them, give yourself time, give yourself a year to really figure out what it is, even what direction do you desire to move into.
The next, second last question is, what about the person who has had something happen in their life and they're
Mhm.
struggling to let it go, to quit it, as you would say, and it's holding
Mhm.
them back, but they
Mhm.
love that safe space of well, I stay there, I know I can feel sad and I
Mhm.
know it's certainty. And if I let it go, I don't know what's going to happen. What
Mhm.
would you say to someone like that? And I'm pretty sure you come across them quite a lot.
I do. So in that moment, we again venture into the scary and unknown place of what it could be like. And oftentimes, because we've stayed in the stagnation and comfortable place of anger, frustration, woe is me, we haven't even allowed ourselves the thought of what it could be like to move out of that place. So that's the first thing that we move to, is what it could be like. I actually could have joy. I actually could feel good about things. And yes, something else may happen to me in life, but now I'll have the tools of how to deal with it. So the first thing we do is allow ourselves permission to even think about that scary, unknown place, because we'll never know if we
Mm.
don't move there. But we can begin to give ourselves an idea of what we would like it to be. So permission to move, to think about it, and permission to move there.
Now, this is the most important question. You're married, you've got two beautiful
Okay.
girls. Who's the best
Yeah.
cook?
Well, me, of course. It's me. It's me.
Okay.
But listen, I'm the best out of necessity. If we say who enjoys it the most, it is not me. My daughters enjoy cooking. They cook with heart and love. I cook because I have to be in the kitchen. Like, that's why I cook.
So leading into that, if the family had to take a vote, what's the go-to meal that they love the most that is cooked at home?
Well, now that I'm thinking, they're probably going to say something that their dad cooks.
See, I knew this would happen.
He does have a way of grilling, and he can grill so well. I have to be honest. We
Is it
all enjoy
ribs?
his
Is it
grilling. So I feel like
steak?
he steaks. Oh my gosh, steaks. He leaves them tender but still so moist. See how yes, he does a great job. Yes, steaks.
Oh, dearie me. So this is the very last question before we start to wrap up. If Rachel B Foy ran into herself at uni before she met her husband, what would she say to her? Here we go. I love it because all our guests start looking to the left, to the right, up the top, going,
Yeah.
what can I say that's not going to get me divorced, in trouble? They think wildly. So we've given you enough padding. Okay, 3, 2, 1. What's the answer, Rach?
I would tell Rachel to go for it.
Yeah.
Like, to travel the places that she wanted to travel, to do the things that she wanted to do, to not fear other people's thoughts or opinions of how her life should turn out, that it's hers, and that she should go for it in every aspect of her life. Just go for it. Just go for it.
And the most important thing is, where do people find Rachel B Foy, and where do they get your book?
So you can find Rachel B Foy across all social media platforms. It's Rachel B as in boy, Foy, Rachel B Foy. My website is www.rachelbfoy.com, and you can find the book there at the website, or you can find it on Amazon. Again, Rachel B Foy. You can just put that in the search engine and find it right there on Amazon. Yeah.
That's absolutely awesome. It's been fantastic talking to you today. And as we say at the end of every one of our podcasts, have a groovy day.